The crowd is absolutely magnificent, and there's a lot of pressure still being put on the front of that main field, Phil, by the Polish squad. And I can only really think of one name, and that must be Zevgeny Spruk, a man who has been very consistent so far this year in the one-day races. And they may well feel that today is the day that he can bring themselves a World Championships. It actually takes me back to probably, I would say, the 70s, looking at the strong Polish amateur team that used to dominate the races. Riders like Ryzjav Sukowski, who were absolutely magnificent. And it's really not since then that we've seen a dominant Polish team at a World Championships.
Absolutely right, but the days of the old Iron Curtain is gone now, thank heavens, and these riders are now free to be professional cyclists as well as they set the pace. This is a Danish rider on the front here, by the way. These are the Poles, slightly different colour pattern. And I think Paul is right. There's only one name that we would contemplate being a world champion by the end of the day, and that is Zbigniew Spruk. He rides 1:10. And significant enough, he's not in this pacemaking group here, so he has made them chase it down. And very typically professional riding, they're allowing the Poles, they know they've got a plan of course, but they're allowing them to bring back this breakaway if they can. It is coming down. Whether it's coming down quick enough, it's 4 minutes 18 the last time check we got.
It almost certainly will come down, because these guys are making a concerted effort on the front. This is the very technical part of the course. Having come through the start-finish line, you then head out on the large circuit, 14 kilometers around. And this part of the course, if you're sitting near the back of the main field, it is very difficult indeed, because there's always the acceleration and deceleration into these corners. And that's why, even at a World Championships level, it's so much easier to ride in the first 20-25 places.
Well, in the Espoirs race on that bend, we've just seen them come round. The heart was in the mouth of some of the riders because they completely misjudged it. Back up with the leaders now as they head under that start-finish banner again. Massive crowd cheering them on, clapping to keep warm as much as anything else as they continue to set the pace. This is Eladio Jimenez sitting at the back as we've gone back to the main field. The Kazakhstan riders are in that sort of turquoise colour with the yellow flower on it, and we'll get a time check as the riders come through. But still the Poles are not being interfered with here, enjoying their pacemaking. I think that's the word.
You can see how difficult it is at the back of the main field there. Those guys are really hammering to try and stay in contact with the wheel in front of them. But it is a pretty good combination at the front of the race at the moment, with Eladio Jimenez of Spain getting in there, a major revelation in this year's Tour of Spain, a man that I'm sure there will be a lot of fights about during the winter months, because certain teams, although he still has a current contract with the Banesto squad, certain teams are already making noises that they would like to bring him across to strengthen their squads for the coming season.
Well, it was 4:18, they're now saying 4:19 as we go out onto lap number 11. The voice there of the man who calls the Tour de France, Daniel Manjas. Terrific knowledge of the sport, and he knows every rider without referring to a note. A magnificent commentator. Thank heavens he doesn't work in television, Paul.
He's unbelievable. He can talk for hours and hours about cycling. He knows absolutely everything about these guys, and he basically earns a living covering all of the major cycling events in France throughout the year.
Well, there's a lovely picture. This really is a fabulous part of France, out on the west coast. Not very far away, in fact, from the home of Bernard Hinault, five-time winner of the Tour de France. Hinault is here, of course, and it's very typical Breton housing with the grey slated roofs and the white painted, those steeply spired churches. And I can guarantee the bars will be absolutely buzzing as the race continues. A bit of pacemaking being done by Piotr Szymlewski. He's the Polish man at the front. His teammate here gritting his teeth. I think it's Piatek. They're all up here now. The man who's missing is Spruk. And Jalabert is there too, look.
Jalabert sitting pretty close to the front of the pack. Spruk, Phil, will sit in the main pack, probably around about 25th place at the moment. He will have a lot of responsibility put onto his shoulders there by the rest of the team, because the fact that they're chasing like this, they really are transferring responsibility to him to finish off the work that they're doing. Jalabert looking very calm and collected at the moment. He's got a World Championship title under his belt, that of the individual time trial, and he would certainly love to try and get himself a victory here in France. There next to him is Paolo Bettini with the green shoulders there of the Italian squad. Bettini's had a magnificent season so far. Davide Rebellin, the other rider in the green there, also a little further back. Italy, I think for the moment, pretty happy having Danilo De Luca in that leading group of riders.
Been a difficult selection process for the Italians because the sport is so popular in Italy, of course. Everybody, including the selectors, say what they feel about selection, and the public split over the decision to leave out David Rebelin and instead put in Marco Pantani. Well, he's one of the Ukrainians who's called it a day. Now, Gonchar was the top rider here. This isn't Sergei Gonchar. He's already won the World Time Trial Championship this year. And this is the sort of conditions. It's Vladimir Duma, who was the last rider, and I think the only rider to finish for his team in the Tour of Italy, wasn't he, Paul?
He was, in fact, and he took out a stage victory, a win at the front of the main field, I should say, just behind the great breakaway by David Mackenzie, Australian rider on the Linda McCartney squad. He popped out of the pack there, and nobody really knew who he was at the time. And now he's taken an early shower. Still the poles on the front, Phil, they really are digging deep, and they're going to have to do something pretty special. They've taken 40 seconds off the advantage of those leaders right now, and still it's a very large pack for a World Championships at this stage.
Under the banner again, the gap is coming down, but ever so slowly. The clock counts on, but it was inside. Well, they're saying 4:01, but I think it's less than that because the head of that field went under that banner. As another lap is ticked off by the driving of the Polish boys. There's no doubt they've got a plan, and the rest of the race is thanking them very much for taking them all up to the leading group, and they're offering no assistance at all. So every one of these Poles sacrificing his world title for one man. We think we've nailed down the man in Zbigniew Spruk because we can't see him, and he must have told his teammates to go and drive the race.
Well, he must feel good. He's had a very good season with a lot of placings in the individual single-day World Cup races. He's a magnificent bike rider. I'm not sure that I would rank him as a world title shot, but maybe today he's in a special day, which is why he's asked his team to come forward. And the thing is, they have really missed the boat, the Poles here, because even the French must be pretty happy with having Christophe Moreau in that leading group of riders. All the major nations at the World Championships, the French, the Dutch and the Belgians have got representatives up there, and of course the Italians too, which is why this situation has developed on the road for Poland. They're going to have to chase, and a 4.5 minute gap is a very difficult one to have to pull back at this stage of the race, because we're only just past half distance, and there won't be too many Poles left with good legs towards the end with a chase like this inside them.
Well, I think as you spoke there, Paul, there's one just blown out and he's dropped away from the front. He said, that's my lot. And I think it was Shumievsky. He's gone to the back now as the rest continue. Well, although our screen a few minutes ago did say 4 minutes, we're getting checks now 3:30, so this chase is working. It's bringing it down to very manageable performance. 19.5 minutes, very consistent laps. Remember when the break went, the pace shot up. They went through in just over 18 minutes, but they've regulated now at around 19.5, 19:40 for the 14.1 kilometre lap.
Just looking at the long line of bike riders there, you can feel the pain and the speed of this main field. But you know, it must be that they are working for Spruk this year, because Spruk has had a magnificent season in the one-day classics. Finished 4th in Milan-San Remo back in March, followed that up with a 9th place in the Tour of Flanders, 8th in the Amstel Gold Race. So he's always been looking to put in a good performance, and in fact we did see quite a lot of him at the front of the main pack in the Olympic Games, which wasn't too long ago in Sydney, but certainly under slightly different climatic conditions.
Well, I've known Zbigniew Spruk for a long time because I used to organise the British Milk Race for many years, the race director of that for 21 years, and in fact Zbigniew was one of the stars of the milk race. He used to come and ride. But look at this, Paul, an attack now by the French. Oh no, this is coming back through the cars, so we've had a flat tyre.
It's a problem. That's Jalabert who is down there. He's being paced back into the main field, and it may well be that he's had a flat tyre. There doesn't seem to be any panic at all there. He's being paced back into the race by one of his teammates, and there's a Dutchman just sitting on the back there for the ride.
Well, if you've got to puncture, early is better than later. Jalabert, though, returning to the fold in many ways here to represent his country, because he had a bit of a fallout over the last couple of years on the anti-doping policy and the exterior testing of riders, and the fact that he's moved to live in Switzerland away from the French, rides for a Spanish team, etc. Lost a lot of favour amongst the officials, but they've let him back in now, and he would love a result, because at the end of the year he apparently is going to leave Ronse, and then he'll be looking to come in to a French team.
He also has a problem that he doesn't have a contract signed at the moment. He actually declared that he wanted to have his contract signed and sealed before he went along to the Olympic Games. Well, that didn't happen at all, and in fact now he's still getting towards the end of the season without a contract for the coming year.
Big Tom Leaper, I think it is, we caught a glimpse of Australia there. Just move up on the outside. There's only 4 Australians started today. Jay Sweet, the sprinter. Scott Sunderland, who was rather miffed. He was not selected for the Australian team for the Olympic Games. He appealed that decision but lost, and he's got good form at the moment. Stuart O'Grady is in here, fresh after his crash. Well, not fresh, but since his crash in the Tour de France. He rode in the Olympic Games, but not with any real distinction. And Tom Leaper, we've just seen.
It's Francesco Casagrande just on the left with the green. Laurent Brochard in the middle. Brochard riding very well this year. Almost got himself a stage victory at the Vuelta a España not too long ago. Coming into the city of Avila just towards the end. There's Scott Sunderland there in the Australian jersey with the glasses on.
Scott is just the man, Paul, to throw a surprise at us today, because he's very annoyed about his non-selection for Australia, especially in his own country. The Olympic Games were in the state of New South Wales. He's a New South Welshman. He comes from Inverell, so he desperately wanted to ride those games but didn't make it, and he's up here at the head of the race. One gets the feeling now that the Polish team are tiring, but they are still closing in on those leaders, which are beginning to show signs of ragginess. We're not seeing too many pictures of them, but when we do see them, there are signs of riders getting a little bit tired now. New Italian team colours off to the right with the green tops of the jersey.
This is Piotr Wadecki on the front, one of the riders of the Moroz team. The only fully fledged international team from Poland, a very well-drilled squad. They take part in many races all over the international circuit, and just now they're riding an excellent race. The Polish team have really got themselves organized today, but they should have had a man in that breakaway, because every other major nation was represented. The tactics at the World Championships are always very strange indeed, because it's always a big battle between France and Italy, and everybody else very often just seems to be along for the ride.
Just got a glimpse there of number 1, Oscar Freire, last year's winner, riding near the head too, but not overdoing it. He's a marked man, of course, now, 1 year on, 9 wins, and a real challenger, recognised by the pelotons, a man for the future. Had this back problem all year, which he hopes to get sorted out as he runs out of his season now. Still, of course, a rather exciting and very interesting Tour of Lombardy to come, with Andre Schmil now showing a challenge to Eric Zabel for that championship, and Schmil starting today, one of the favourites. Another non-starter today, by the way, Abraham Olano. He's gone back home to Spain.
Well, he was a little bit surprised at not taking out the win in the individual time trial. He was the #1 favourite, fresh from the Olympic Games. He felt as if he would have won the event, and he blamed it on bad communication between himself and his manager. But I have always thought that if you go out to win a time trial, you have to ride as hard as you can for as long as you can. So I think maybe the form just wasn't there.
And of course, no Andrea Taffi on the Italian squad, and there's no one more disappointed than he after winning the Paris Tours in such fine style. And when you look down the list of riders who have made the Italian squad, you really do have to ask the question, why leave out Andrea Taffi?
Well, Taffi, whether or not he's won a lot of races this year, is always a man to be counted on for the team. He's always the kind of rider who will work beautifully as a domestique, and surprisingly enough, they have left him out, and he'll probably be watching this at home now, not very happy, thinking, if I'd have been there, I'd have been ripping this race to pieces right now.
Back up with the leaders. That's Jimenez at the back of the race. Well, he was. He's not at the back of the race now. That's Marichal who's come to the back. There's 2 Spanish riders in this group, enough to keep a worry over the field behind, although neither would be expected to be world champion by the end of the day. As Geert Pronk of the Rabobank squad sets the pace here at the front. This is Tilly Marichal.
The Russian rider in there is Lelekin. He's fairly young, 27 years of age. These riders now, Phil, really are realising that the chase is on behind as Marichal leads them up to the end of the lap. In second place, that is Pronk. But Christophe Moreau must be feeling quite happy about this race situation. And looking at Danilo De Luca there in the Italian jersey, he doesn't actually seem to be flying all of that well at the moment. He's actually having a hard time staying on the wheel of the man in front of him. So we may well see another change in tactics later on. If the Italians get wind that in fact their man Danilo De Luca is not riding too well, I think they will come to the front as well and start to chase.
Well, I think this is attack time here. They've decided these 9 riders are getting a little bit cumbersome. They know that the Polish train is reducing it, and they're trying to split the field here as they come up this very nasty drag. It'll get worse too as the race goes on, because that is Roger Bochat who has got on the train, and Geert Pronk is tagged on, but there's a few missing now.
That really has split the field. Marichal really put the hammer down, and that has reduced the number of riders. And I think that is not going to be a great move for them, because we've now seen the two Spanish riders there being left behind. The other French rider who was in that break earlier on, Beneteau, he has now been slumped to the rear as Christophe Moreau decides to come forward now and accelerate on the slopes of this climb. All of the French riders must be on a serious high here today, because they are racing on a circuit which in the month of August sees around about 250,000 spectators witnessing the Grand Prix of Plouay. 5 riders now leading the race, but behind, the riders from Poland really are doing an excellent job, and they're slowly but surely eating into the advantage of this breakaway.
Well, this is a surprise. Thierry Marichal trying to split the field. He's not a rider of great note. I'm just wondering what his tactic is. A couple of tours under his belt. He's ridden the last 2 editions and finished both of them rather lowly, but nonetheless, to finish the Tour de France is a tremendous achievement.
Well, the two Spaniards have been caught here. One is Eladio Jimenez, and the other is Rafael Diaz Justo. And the other rider caught out in that split was the Russian rider Sergei Lelekin. If they can integrate over the top of this climb, they will reform to make a 9-man leading group. But looking back, it looks as if they've already lost around about 20 seconds from the 5 riders who are leading right now.
168 kilometres done. 5 of the original 9 that got clear around the 60-kilometre point. So they've been 100 kilometres together. The 2 Spanish riders are being dispatched backwards, as too is Walter Beneteau, the Frenchman. And the Russian rider Lelekin. Marichal was the troublemaker, 27-year-old. He's got 2 wins this year, including finishing second overall in the Circuit Franco-Belge. A very good result for him, so he's got his form at the right time.
Christophe Moreau has decided what his tactic is going to be as we get confirmation of the group there. Although I did say that Danilo De Luca looked under pressure, he's still in this leading group of 5, and so that will take the pressure off the Italian squad behind. Walter Beneteau, by the way, in the second group on the road there for France, won the Circuit de l'Aune, which is not too far away from here. It used to be known as the Criterium of Châteaulin, and it was always the great big revenge match after the World Championships, when the World Championships were held in August. So that was a big win for him, and he too is a rider from not very far away from here, from Nantes, and was a member of Jean-René Bernado's Vendée U development squad.
Slipping to the back now, 101. Mate Pronk, I think I called him Gert Pronk earlier. Gert, who was an ex-speed skater, that's having too many memories, I think. Gert is now out of it, but this is Mate Pronk, who's up in the breakaway. Sits at the back, and it's a good move by the youngster as well.
Christophe Moreau is the strongest rider in the group right now, and it'd be nice to go back to the main field and just see if any of the other teams have decided to come forward, because the news must certainly have gone back now that the 2 Spanish riders who were in this group have been left behind, and that will change the whole look of this bike race. Obviously the Belgians will be fairly happy with the presence of one of their riders in here, but one man on the Belgian squad has actually axed the whole of the end of the season towards this World Championships, and that's André Schmil, recently second in the Paris Tours World Cup race. He is looking for the big win here, and in fact declined selection for the Olympic Games to concentrate on winning the World Championships.
Well, he's going to thank the Poles if they catch up. The Italians are hovering. Look, all of them with the green jerseys on. Still 4 Poles setting the pace, and no one is assisting them. The pace, though, is registering the fact that they are bringing them all back. Ever so slowly is the case, but the gap is closing. They should be inside 3.5 minutes at the next time check we get.
I think it's a bit strange to be looking at a World Championships and have names like Jan Ullrich, Lance Armstrong and Alex Zuller absent from the starting list. A real reflection that the majority of the big names can't hold on till the end of the season, and unfortunately we have had good World Championships, but maybe not all of the best riders in the world are present at the latter part of the season.
In a couple of years' time, these championships on these dates will be in Canada. Well, I am assured that it's an area where the snow doesn't come that early. Let's hope they're right, because otherwise we would be in trouble. But there is a rumour actually coming out of these championships that they are seriously considering now moving the titles back into the end of the summer season, which will be August into September, where of course they always were. I think it's fair enough now, because the Tour of Spain has been a very successful move from April to September. A race in its own right now, much more interesting than it was, and so I think the change is ready.
Absolutely. Christophe Moreau, the larger rider there, rode absolutely superbly in the Tour de France, finishing 4th overall, just losing out in the final time trial to his own teammate Joseba Belocchi. But Danilo De Luca, having gone through that bad patch, is really being encouraged now by the crowd, and what a magnificent crowd this is through the finishing area, Phil. I would say there are in excess of 350,000 spectators today, and if the weather had been good, they were expecting 500,000.
Well, watch the clock, 7 laps to go. These 5 riders must now be feeling the Polish cold air coming up from behind. These are the 4 that were dropped from that group of 9. Remember, they went away on the 4th circuit. We're now 7 from the end of the 19. And they know they're resigned to the fate now that shortly they'll be the first to see the Polish boys close it down.
Well, the fire has gone out of these guys now, and they will know that fairly shortly they will feel the breath of the Polish squad on their backs, because the Poles are doing a magnificent job on the front of the main field, trying to pull this race back together. And the fact that that leading group now has split into 2 groups of 5 and 4, I think we will see the whole race coming back together. But it's going to be a long, hard chase by the Poles. This group now of 4, Phil, just inside 1 minute in arrears of the leading group of 5.
Yes, they've more or less given up now. Once they've dropped, there's no point in continuing on. You may as well just ride round till the peloton picks you up and see if there's anything left in those legs. Back into the danger zone. This is there's the French with all the bags hanging out. But it looks as though Francis Moreau, yes, he got one. He's had an unfortunate season this year. He's had 2 crashes very early on. Francis Moreau broke his collarbone in the first one and then fractured his skull in the second. But at least he's got himself back into form.
Second group of 4 riders here. The 2 Spaniards on the front there, Diaz Justo and Eladio Jimenez. Jimenez taking a stage victory in the Vuelta a España, and certainly regarded by many as one of the great Spanish hopes for the future. A huge turnaround in Spanish cycling, when a few years ago one wouldn't have expected to see the Spanish being so competitive in the one-day World Championships. But since Abraham Olano took their first title in Colombia, and then followed that up last year with a win by Oscar Freire, I think they're fancying their chances today. And Oscar Freire, for me, Phil, still has to be a super chance at the finish, because this circuit is not a circuit for the major climbers, and if it's a group of riders of 25 or 30 left towards the end, then really Oscar Freire has a chance of being one of the rare world champions to take the title twice on the row.
Well, that would be rather nice for Freire, especially after his surprise victory last year, but his great season that has followed since. De Luca on the left of our picture, man of quality, I think, and we'll be very happy the way things are going. With 7 laps to go, here's the bunch. Now, are they coming to the start-finishing line? If so, the clock will be on them. It's not long since the leaders gone through. They are getting much closer than they were. It was 3.5 minutes, but I think the effort by the Poles has slashed that right down now.
Still an awful lot of bike riders left in the event at the moment. The amazing thing about the World Championships is it's this constant pressure, and there you can see the Spaniards fill in about 10th position there, still looking pretty comfortable, pretty happy with the situation. Axel Merckx was still in the main field there, looking quite comfortable, and Gordon McCauley, I think I caught a sign off there, the Kiwi rider. Just 2 Kiwis in the field here, one Chris Jenner, the other McCauley. And looking down there, you can see that there is still a very large field left in the professional World Championships.
Well, these boys haven't really turned the pedal in anger. They've sat behind the poles. There's the gap, though. Still quite a considerable one. They've really held on here. 3:24 it is now at 7 to go.
That's really going to hurt the Polish team later on, and everybody else for the moment pretty happy just to sit back and allow them to set all the pace-making at the front. Alexander Vinokurov still in the main field. A glimpse of him. There's the other Estonian rider, Jan Kirsipu. Kirsipu, another man that if the race doesn't toughen up towards the end there, in fact, is Andre Schmeel, still looking very comfortable. Strange way to eat a bottle, but maybe he's just found a different way of drinking.
He'll never get it down, no matter how hard he tries. But Schmeel will feel things are under control just now. There's a nice view again of the town of Pluet. This race on the outskirts. The town itself is full of narrow streets, and you couldn't run the race through there. So they're on the outskirts here as the peloton, still a big one, speeds on its way, still working out how they're going to close the gap, because the last time round it was 3.5. They've only knocked 7 seconds off this time, and that's not an indication they're going to wipe them out yet. The Poles are going to request some help soon, I think.
Well, 54 seconds, that group of 4 is in arrears of the leading group of 5 in the main field, 3.5 minutes behind right now, and all of the pressure, Phil, still coming from that Polish squad. These are the 4 riders caught in the middle. Walter Beneteau is number 25, rides for the Bonjour team, and the 2 Spaniards, they really did get caught out there, Diaz Justo and Eladio Jimenez. And Sergei Lelekin, well, I think he's just pretty happy to be there, because Lelekin is not a rider on one of the top international teams. In fact, this is the first time I've seen Lelekin racing, and he must be pretty happy to be at the front of the World Championships. A big chance for a rider like him to interest the sponsors and possibly ride into a professional squad for next season.
Well, Beneteau there got round his first Tour de France this year. He's only a youngster. Another one of the fines, I think. Finished 71st, but the fact was he finished, and he seems to have come here determined to establish at least an impression on the event.
Well, another team coming to the front now. It may well be red and white, but this time, in fact, it's the Danish team have decided to send 1 or 2 riders further forward. They've seen the big pressure that the Poles have been put under and decided now is the time to come forward and help out in the organisation of the front of this pack. And now that we are getting another team interested, it may well be a time that the main group in front will start to get pulled back. The thing about the Danish team is we did see a very impressive Rolf Sørensen a week ago in Paris Tours, and it may well be that Rolf is looking for the biggest title of his career. He's won almost every major one-day race that there is on the calendar, but he's never been world champion.
This is the dangerous stretch. We've had quite a few little tumbles here with the women juniors and the espoirs coming down this section. And the sharp left hand, I think it's Alan Johansson who's on the front. He's a sort of elder statesman now of the Danish riders, but even so, he was a late turning professional, and he is a strong man, so they'll welcome him at the front, and the Poles could do with a break anyway, because I don't know how many laps they've been chasing, at least 4.
It's very difficult for them, and this is the technical part of the course, and I tell you one thing, you don't want to be in 30th or 40th position right now, because you're hanging right onto the wheel of the rider in front of you. There are the 4 riders who were caught in no man's land, so they're just about to get brought back into the fold, and so now the race situation will be the 5 leaders with the rest of the main pack together.
About to swoop round a roundabout, and the 4 riders round it first on the inside track. There's the field right onto them now, so the field will soon work out they haven't got them all if they didn't know already, and they'll assess who they've caught and who they haven't. There they are, the 2 Spanish, the Russian and the Frenchman are back in the fold. Where's the other Spanish rider? He'll be around somewhere.
Well, now that this situation has happened on the road, I think we may well see Spain coming forward as well, Phil, because Oscar Freire must certainly be a serious challenger for the title if they can keep a large group together. And it seems for the moment as if there hasn't been too much devastation at the back of this pack, and it is a very large group. The whistles and the shouts going forward now from the Poles. The Poles realizing that Spain now don't have any riders in the front, so they've cut off the power, they've set up, and now I think we will see a change in the front of the main field.
I think you're right. They've now said that the other boys have got no excuse now for not giving us a hand, so if they won't do it, then we won't bother either. And the reaction coming straight away from Spain. That was a good decision by the Polish riders. Otherwise, these boys would have thanked them all the way to the finish and then taken the medals. Now Spain go out on the attack.
Well, that's a bit strange. Spain there not really wanting to come to the front and organise a chase and deciding to launch a man off the front. Not a very sensible move at this stage in the game, because those riders are still more than 2.5 minutes in front, and trying to ride across a gap like that at the World Championships is basically a waste of energy.
Well, he's a tall boy, and the tall boy which comes to mind is Martin Perdiguero, who is on the attack here. And the riders try to reorganise themselves to see if they can get the counter-action going. Remember that there's still 5 riders, 3 minutes and 20 seconds ahead.
This is a tough course. You can actually see, looking at the pavement out there as well, that it's not a smooth surface here. These Breton roads, the small roads away from the main highways, are very, very rough, and they're not really rolling it along as well. It's very difficult to get any kind of moving. This, in fact, looks very much like Jose Enrique Gutierrez, who's going forward.
I told you it was Perdiguero, didn't I?
I know you did. You've always been good on your Spanish riders. You can see that was a clever move, though, by the Spanish. This is how he got away. He had a teammate on his wheel there, and as soon as they got to the front of the pack, he sat up and allowed this man to go clear. But I don't think he's too far off the front of the main pack right now.
What a great season Kelme have had too, running out team winners in the Tour de France. Wonderful performance, and challenges all of the way. And now we've got Heras, winner of the Tour of Spain. Rumours, by the way, he might move across to Lance Armstrong's side.
Well, that would be an incredible move for the US Postal Service team, though he does still hold a valid contract with the Kelme squad. It is an interesting move for him to move across there. He said that he made those contacts well before the Tour of Spain. He's very interested to ride along Armstrong and learn how to ride time trials. He feels that he would be a much more improved rider riding alongside Armstrong for a couple of years, and maybe then have a crack at winning the Tour de France overall. The main field coming up towards the finishing area. Still a huge pack of riders, Phil. Nobody yet has managed to break the stranglehold, and not really a very clever tactical move by the Spanish right now, because they do have a serious challenger for the win in Oscar Ferreira, and they need to get themselves pretty much organized at the front of the pack if they're going to pull that leading group of 5 back.
Well, this man's proving to be a nice little carrot here now, or a nice large carrot actually, in Gutierrez. So we're looking down, riders trying to get away from the front of the pack. The sign writers have been busy. Well, this is an interesting attack. The Polish rider still setting the pace, trying to keep everybody on the toes. It's a tough one. This is Piotr Radecki, the Moroz rider. He's had a good day. There are 3 riders on the Moroz team made the selection for the Polish team, and I think they've got 8 men on the start line today.
Well, Radecki wearing a slightly different jersey to the rest of the team there, and I'm not sure that's allowed at the World Championships. He's actually wearing the Polish National Road Racing Champions jersey, and at the World Championships you're supposed to wear the national jersey of your country, but today he's decided to opt for that. He may well find himself getting a slight fine from the Union Cycliste Internationale. He's 2-time national champion of Poland. Actually, he took the time trial championships as well.
Well, the design's the same, it's just the writing on the top alters a bit, so they might get away with that. Anyway, it looks as though Gonzalez is getting away with nothing, because Gutierrez rather, he's being caught. And now the Italians, and this is Bettini, who are now trying to stir things up a bit. They've sensed it's getting time. Now De Luca may not be too happy with this.
Surprised to see. I think he just wants to pull the Spanish rider back into the fold right there. A little test of the legs to see how everybody else was going to attack. Gutierrez looks over his shoulder, realizes it's all over right now, and it's still the Polish coming to the front. That is Zevgeny Spruk there moving forward. You can see the blue and pink shorts of the Lampre squad. He too coming forward right now, just to show the team that he is there, still in the bike race, but he shouldn't have come off the front like that right now.
Well, that bunch is thinning out rather dramatically now. Gutierrez is showing his resistance, but now it's all over. Now the serious boys are beginning to fire. This looks like it being a good lap, and surely it was 3:24 last time around. And that was a 19-minute 35 lap, by the way. Surely now on lap 13 we're going to see that gap come down.
Well, the hammer now starting to come down a little more. Everybody trying to raise the tempo in this main field, but you can always see when it's hurting, because riders looking over their shoulders to see if the gaps are appearing in the main field, and they're not right now. There's a couple of Dutch riders moving forward there. Michael Bogard is in the group quite comfortably. There's Scotty Sunderland halfway down the pack, looking further down the main field. A lot of these riders really are starting to suffer right now.
Yes, this is the crunch period. There's always stages of a World Championship when you have to grit your teeth and hope you survive to come through the other end, and this is one of those periods now. At around 180 kilometers covered, some 80 kilometers still to race. They've got to answer the pressure being put on. We're chasing at 5 survivors of 9, and the gap is coming down.
It's not coming down very rapidly at the moment, though, as Alexander Vinokurov comes to the front here, the rider from Kazakhstan, Olympic silver medalist, a magnificent bike rider, one of a great Kazakhstan international amateur team who raced all over the world and then literally exploded, nearly every one of those riders getting a professional contract. You can see the pressure now as people move left and right in that front of that spearhead, trying to be near the front but not wanting to put their noses into the wind at the moment.
I don't blame them. Back up to the front runners. Another lap can be ticked off here, reaching the 184 kilometer point, and then the clock will start and we'll see what they've got. That's Bochat of Switzerland. Quite like the Swiss team colours as they come through, and I like the new Italian colours too. De Luca's wearing those, sat at the back. These riders have been away now since the 60th kilometre, so 120 kilometres in the lead. which is some 70 miles out front, 4 hours 22 as they go out on lap 14.
6 laps remaining. Bouchard has had a pretty reasonable season. He's a young rider with 1 victory to his credit, and that was just a couple of weeks ago in the Hessen-Rundfahrt when he took out the 2nd stage, as Austria moves to the front. There in the middle for France is Brochard. There's a Frenchman there on the left-hand side with a slight problem, and that looks very much as if it's Laurent Jalabert got his arm in the air.
Well, now this is a far more serious situation for Jalabert if he has. Laurent Brochard going through camera now. He's also right at the sharp end, looking for the move perhaps. This is the area now. You must hold position. There's poor old Jalabert there. He must have a flat tyre.
He has a serious problem. His hand has been up. He's looking over to see if there are any teammates around right now. And I wonder, there's the French team car right at the front of the pack. But this is not the time to have an incident, because the pressure is pretty much on at the front of the pack right now. And if he finds himself off the back with a mechanical incident, he's going to have a hard time getting himself back into the race.
Just look at Radetzky here. Drive this race on. He is going like a train. It's a bit of a performance for the crowd, I think, this to the start-finishing line, but he's going well. Brochard sprinting up on the left of our picture, trying to join 3 men on the attack. There's the tying up. My goodness me, it's come down this time. 2 minutes 8 seconds the gap.
It's still been a very long and hard chase, Phil, to pull back from 4.5 minutes to 2 minutes, but I do feel now that we will see the end of that leading group of 5 fairly shortly. Well, another man has climbed into the pits. This is Frédéric Pinault of France, and this is the part of the race now where we can expect more and more riders to pull away from the race. 1 minute 55 seconds is the official time on the board for the 5 riders at the front of the bike race, and still Christophe Moreau is the man really keeping the pressure on. He's the man who's got the most to gain from a situation like this, as well as Danilo De Luca in 2nd position there. De Luca must be just keeping his fingers crossed and hoping there's going to be some tactical maneuvers in the main field behind, but that doesn't happen at the World Championships. Once you get to the critical part of the race, the hammer really does start to go down, and Brochard is the man putting the hammer down right now. He's going off the front of the pack, Phil, and you can hear the French crowd.
Well, we're looking at the man who has won the world title in the past, facing all sorts of accusations that he may have won it on drugs, but that's what's coming out of the Festina affair, of which Brochard is very much a part of that. But right now he's trying to redeem himself here as he tries to rip clear of the field. Ideally he wants a small group with him.
Belgians sending a man up there to try and get onto the tail. It looked like Nico Matin moving forward. It isn't in fact Nico Matin, it's one of the other Belgian riders. That's Michael van Heijken who's got across. He's not a rider we see an awful lot of on the international circuit. The man I feel they're working for today must be André Schmeel. And at the back of the pack we're hearing over race radio that there is a problem with Laurent Jalabert.
Well, that's a real shame. The question is, he's going to be very unlucky, because the hammer has gone down right at the moment he slid off the back of the field. We're now on to lap 14 here, 185 kilometres covered for the main field. The leaders just a little bit further ahead, but not by much now. They're probably inside 2 minutes now after this flurry of attacks.
Tell you what, the hammer is really down right now. Everybody is trying to get off the front. Everybody is trying to form the counter-attack in pursuit of those 5 leaders at the moment. Their advantage has come down pretty rapidly. It was at one time 4.5 minutes. It's now well inside of 2 minutes, and the speed is obviously different in the main field. You can see the difference in the speed. These riders, Phil, now are approaching 50 kilometers an hour, and this lap, if they keep this pressure on, is going to be pretty close to the fastest so far.
But the impetus slipping just a bit as that flurry of attacks has been brought back to heel. The riders looking for who's going to move next. The lap time itself was not great, 19:35 followed by a 19:41, so nothing approaching the 18:09 done when the original break went away on lap 4.
Christophe Moreau leading them into the finishing straight. There is Danilo De Luca. De Luca's a magnificent bike rider, and there's been some incredible sums of money bandied around to try and pick up this bike rider. Sums of money well in excess of the $1 million per year, and I certainly think that he's going to be a great bike rider. Very cocky for the moment, knows exactly what he wants to do, and he so dearly wanted the Maglia Rossa in the Giro d'Italia this year. The huge crowd is not, though, for Danilo De Luca with the green shirt there. It's for Christophe Moreau, the French representative in this leading group of 5.
200 kilometres, give or take a kilometre under the wheels now. And this looks as though Mate Pronk has been left, has he, by the leaders? Gritting his teeth anyway. Spot of bother. He was in the breakaway, but he's in trouble now.
Well, that's a surprise. He may well have had a mechanical incident because he seemed to be riding fairly well there. He's 30 seconds or more in arrears of that leading group of riders.
He must have punctured. We never heard about that, but he must have punctured as he goes into 5 laps to go.
A bit of calm coming to the front of the main field right now, but you can notice now the organisation starting to come in from the Italians. A lot of those green shouldered jerseys moving to the front. That's the Italian squad, the new Italian strip. They've got a pretty good role to play here right now because they have Danilo De Luca in the leading group of riders, but they also have Michele Bartoli. Bartoli just on the right-hand side there with the tricolor helmet on, that helmet indicating he's the national champion of Italy this year. And he likes this circuit. He said openly when he won the Grand Prix of Plouay in the month of August that he'd like to come back in a couple of months' time and find himself crowned the world champion. He was the super favourite before the start of the championships, and for the moment he hasn't made a wrong move.
And these 3 riders surviving here now, or 4 riders, sorry, Bochat sitting on the back of them. I don't know if you noticed Barty there, Paul. He's still got his top jersey on, his zip up top. I mean, that's something you wouldn't normally see in a World Championship with some 5 laps still to race.
Still pretty cool for the moment. There is his teammate Paolo Bettini, wears 39 in second position, right up against the barriers right now. But the main field slowly but surely starting to reduce in numbers, and it's in the last 2 or 3 laps we'll see riders disappearing from this group. It's still pretty big though for this state of a World Championships. 5 laps still to go to the finish, and a huge convoy of cars behind the riders. All the major nations are allowed to bring 12 riders to the World Championships, and the lesser teams are allowed to bring just 8. The defending team, which is in this instance Spain, would have been allowed to start 13 riders here at the World Championships, Alano being the 13th man, and he in fact decided to take his dummy and go home after he was beaten in the individual time trial. But it's a big advantage, and this is all decided on the rankings of the teams in the international field. The UCI ranks all of the countries, and if you finish in the top 6, you're allowed to bring 12 riders to the World Championships.
Just sort of caught a glimpse there at the head of the field of Chan McRae, who had a great ride last year and finished 5th. I think he's the only survivor left in now of the Americans. I think all of the others, there weren't many of them, are now out. Antonio Cruz, who also rode in the World Championships, Danny Pates and Fred Rodriguez. Haven't seen Fred at all, the American champion, but McRae's still certainly at the thick end of the race.
Pretty close to the front there, wearing 36 is Richard Vironk, and I wonder what's going through his mind right now as Mate Pronk has been caught. That leaves just 4 riders at the front of the World Championships right now, and their advantage is coming down all of the time.
I just had the feeling that Pronk did have a flat tyre there, but anyway, it doesn't matter now. He's back in the field. Of the 9 originals, 4 survive as the race continues to chase them all down. Still at 1 or 2 Belgians there. They are working, of course, for Andre Schmil. Bartoli tucked in nicely. How he would like to round off his season with a world title. There he is over to the right. No, there he is gone now. I don't know where he's gone.
He's keeping pretty close. He's in the first 5 or 6 riders there, just off to the right-hand side. He's keeping himself off the front of the main field right now, but also as close to the front as possible in case there are any surprise attacks. Right in the middle there is Axel Merckx in the Belgian jersey, just going off to the left. There he is now with the orange jersey on right now. Big, strong rider, Axel. Looking pretty nervous right now, looking over his shoulder. Probably wants to know the whereabouts of Andre Schmil. What a great season Axel has had. He's brought his dad an awful lot of emotion. A great individual stage victory in the Giro d'Italia, when I could not believe that he would come back after a dramatic crash. And then in the month of June, he took the national championships, and it's been a long time since the Belgians have seen the name Merckx right at the top of the leaderboard. And I tell you one thing, they say that Eddie was actually there commentating for Belgian television, and they had to rip the microphone away from him with about 10 kilometers to go.
Well, you know, Merckx followed by Merckx is a pretty sensational thing to happen, because apart from Johan Museu, a couple of flurries by 1 or 2 other riders, there hasn't been much to shout for in Belgium in recent years. The Italians at the minute are doing everything right. They've got all of their players at the front. The Spanish riders are riding in defence of Oscar Freire again. It's an interesting move, this. The big guns are firing. The big teams who boast 12 starters are now showing the advantage of having so many riders on the start line.
Well-drilled squads coming forward now, getting team tactics, and I do feel that the Spanish really only have one major chance in their ranks, and that is the defending champion Oscar Freire, and that would be pretty impressive if he could make it 2 in a row. The last time that was done by Gianni Bugno, and it's very rare for a world title to happen twice in succession. The field, Phil, does look to be reducing in numbers somewhat, and it really is becoming a war of attrition as we rejoin the 4 leaders, and they're looking a little bit more ragged than they did earlier on. This climb, although not very much if you do it just on one occasion, after 5 or 6 hours in the saddle, really does start to become quite a mountain. It feels as if somebody's got a hydraulic jack underneath it and they're lifting it up each time you come around.
Those legs are not going to make it to the finish on these 4 riders, and there's the reason why. 1 minute 10 seconds now, back to the peloton. Robbie Hunter, the latest rider to reach our ears from South Africa, who's now retired.
Well, in fact, although the time gap was just over the 1 minute, I've noticed they're pushing all of the cars out of the gap right now, and these guys know what that means. That's why Marichal there from Belgium is looking over his shoulder. It means once they start pushing all of the cars out of the way that the gap is coming down pretty rapidly. And the last time check of 1 minute, I think when we pull back, may well only be 30 seconds.
Well, they are on a hill. And we haven't found them yet. There they are. No, I think you're right. 50 seconds is probably the gap now. They're coming very quickly. And when the capture arrives, as it surely will, then we're going to see a flurry of attacks, I am sure, because there are far too many riders here dreaming of a rainbow jersey right now.
Still a lot of big names in this group. Sergei Ivanov was still there for Russia. Looking a little bit further down the pack, Scotty Sunderland is still in there as well for Australia. Caught a quick glimpse of him. This man here is Roberto Laiseca, the man we saw taking a stage victory at the Vuelta a España. A very good bike rider, finished high in the overall rankings as well. Spain on the front, completely organized, trying to pull this back, trying to keep a large group together for their man, the defending champion Oscar Freire.
And Richard Virenque is also there now, centre left of our picture, and still looking pretty cool here. 54 seconds, so that wasn't a bad guess by us, was it, as they now start to close in. This is going to be a most interesting move here now.
Yevgeny Spruk, Polish rider on the right-hand side. He now has to ride very close to the front of the pack after all of the work that was done by his teammates to pull back that advantage, which at one time was 4.5 minutes. Virenque looking over to see where everybody else is. There is Andre Schmeel a little further back in the light blue jersey of the Belgians. And if we can have a look further down the field, we'll get a chance to see if Laurent Jalabert managed to get himself back into the main field. There is Oscar Freire, Phil, wearing number 1 there, pretty close to the front of the pack. Magnificent bike rider, defending champion, and looking very seriously as a major contender here to take the win twice.
And the only Aussie left in the race, I think now, Scott Sunderland, is right up there as well. Like Andre Taffy, he's got a point to prove. Max Chandry still going through there. There's still 2 of the 3 British riders in this race. The other one didn't start, by the way. John Tanner and Charlie Vergalius, sorry, Max Chandry and Charlie Vergalius are the 2 riders left in this race, and they're both up there too.
Well, looking down that long main field there, I didn't catch much of a sign of Laurent Jalabert, but it's very easy to hide in the main pack. The 4 leaders over the top of the climb now starting to organize themselves just a little bit. Marichal is the man in first place. Danilo De Luca's face not giving anything away right now, but I think he realizes he's had his chance of glory at the World Championships. It's been a major help for the Italians, but basically for these 4 riders, as the pace picks up towards the end, they will get caught and probably spat out of the back.
But it's still been a superb ride. Over 100 miles in the lead now for those 4 survivors of the 9 who escaped originally, as again the Italians now trying to take control and trying desperately now to reduce that lead. Often wonder, Paul, why Italians are chasing an Italian.
I think they've realised now that the race is over. They realise that the fact is those 4 riders have been in the breakaway situation for a long time, and maybe the word has come back that in fact Danilo De Luca is not in excellent form. He's not certainly going to win, and the Italians feel that this is the moment they really need to put that. This is Michele Bartoli, El Gatto, the cat they call him. He's coming out to the front of the pack right now. He knows this course. This is where he won the Grand Prix of Plouay, and this is the first major serious attack of the race.
Well, Bartoli now trying to rip this field to shreds here as we go into the closing laps of the event. There's still De Luca up in the front. He'll be not happy at the thought the Italians are throwing their best men at the race now to reduce that lead, but we are inside a minute, well inside a minute now to those leaders. We say bye-bye to Plouay again as we move out on these closing laps of the World Championship.
That attack hurt. The Italian in third position there is Davide Rebellin. Michael Bogard is there in the orange. I'm not quite sure what Michele wants. Come on, boys, let's get working. He looks over his shoulder to see what sort of damage has been done. Not really enough for the moment. There's still an awful lot of bike riders still in contact.
Well, the thing was, I didn't see Schmil making that break, so there was no reason for the Belgian riders to start working there. And besides, Bartoli is not slow in cajoling everybody into action. And it's a question whether you're strong enough to say no thanks.
When he looks over his shoulder here, he sees that they've got the gap here, and he's saying go, 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 because we have a gap, but nobody else wants to. The Belgian orders are obviously there. You can see that they're not going to work at all unless Andre Schmil is in the front split of riders. A general regrouping once again happening in this bike race, but that was a pretty serious attack there by Michele Bartoli.
Yes, it's one of those occasions I wish the camera was at the back of the race, because I'm quite sure we lost a few riders with that flurry of activity.
Absolutely. Many riders will have been put under pressure there, but they need to keep this pressure on over the top. Otherwise, riders will recover. They have a slight gap over the rest of the field right now as Paolo Bettini comes forward to insist and accelerate. A lot of Mapei riders in this Italian selection, but they haven't split the main field right now, Phil. There will be 1 or 2 riders at the back suffering, but there's still around about 60 riders in this group.
All coming back together again. It's being left to the Italians now to drive on all of the time.
Maximilian Chandri riding pretty much to the front, very much in the autumn of his career now, Max, but still having, I reckon, a pretty good season. He was so close to getting himself a stage victory in the Giro d'Italia earlier this year. He then was selected for the Great Britain team for the Olympic Games, and here at this crunch time, riding very well to the front of the pack at the World Championships.
And there's the view of the farmland around Plouay as the field now work out how they can bridge a gap of some 35 seconds. It's not much more than that to the leaders, and they're all having a go now. The Swiss riders getting into the action, and this looks to me like Andre Schmil. Now they're going to have to react to this one.
Schmil looking very strong. He's dedicated the whole latter half of his season to this World Championships right now, and that really has caught the Italians hopping. The Italians looking over their shoulders now. They want to organise the chase at the front, but they need to chase down pretty rapidly. I can't really get an ID on the Swiss rider in there, but that is definitely Andre Schmil. They haven't got very much of an advantage over the pack, but they are coming now to the fairly technical part of the course, so this is a possibility to open up the gap.
Well, the field, the message will soon spread down that Schmil is getting a bit active now. That peloton still, though, very unwieldy and quite large. This is back up to the leaders, but now it's all over. The leaders are the main field, as all of a sudden they've wiped it all out, and after more than 100 miles in the lead, the World Championship is again up for grabs.
First man to make the junction there is Andre Schmil, but the main field are not really very far behind at the moment, and over the next few laps, Phil, every time we hit that climb up through the finishing straight in Plouay, there will be attacks. They'll be trying to force a small group of riders off the front. They're sitting up right now. This is a moment, a lull, having caught the 4 leaders. Everybody's trying to re-ascertain the tactics, who they need to launch forward onto the attack. But certainly Andre Schmil there in the middle of the picture, announcing the colours. He's in form and wants to take out the win here.
Well, he's a frisky man at this stage of any race. 2.5 laps still to go, and anybody in with a shout now. And for quite unusually for the World Championship, there's a lot of big teams with a lot of men left at the sharp end of this race. The Italians, the Spanish, the French, the top Belgians are still there as well. This is the corner that's caught so many people off guard, but it looks as though they're coming round it safely again.
Still Danilo De Luca there on the front. He will, I would think, drift back a little bit. Now this is the rear of the pack. Now this is rather interesting here, because the man we're looking at right now is in fact Laurent Jalabert, who's riding himself into the pits. He was having serious difficulty there before, Phil, and he's now climbing off. Right up there alongside him is Gilles Bouvard. So that's a blow for the French, and I'm sure it's very much a psychological blow for Laurent Jalabert because of the worry of whether or not he has a contract for next season.
Yes, it wasn't quite what he had in his mind, I don't think, but there we are. That's the way it goes. This is now an attack by Nicky Eversold. I think it is. It might be Beat Zeberg, was it?
Beat Zeberg, it was, the brother of Marcus Zeberg, a very good bike rider. These two guys normally spend their season riding for the Rabobank team. Marcus Zeberg, if it does come down to a large group sprint at the end, is another man who has a serious chance of taking out a victory. This is the move by Zeberg. The Italian's controlling the front of the main pack, but he's decided he's going to go out, and it's always going to be on this slope up through the finishing straight towards the summit of the climb outside of Plouay.
Well, we've had some wet days this week, but we've seen some excellent bike racing, I have to say, and how wonderful it was to see Mari Holden win the gold medal in the time trial, beating Jenny Longo, a rider she'd never beaten until this year. She beat her in the Olympics to the silver and in the Worlds to the gold.
26 kilometers to go. Zeberg hasn't really got much of an advantage over the main field, but look how easy Andre Schmil looks there, Phil. He looks over his shoulder to look at the faces of the other bike riders in this event here and moves forward just to make sure that he's at the front of the pack. I think this man is in excellent form today. In about 5th or 6th position there in the multicolored jersey with the red and blue sleeves is Maximilien Chiandri. On the right in the orange is Mikkel Bogert. And that group now has seriously been reduced in numbers because of all those accelerations. But what a crowd on the finishing line.
Fabulous atmosphere here as Max Chiandri for Britain, and here he is right on the front now. He's a man for championships, bronze medal in the Olympic Games 4 years ago in Atlanta, and wants to see if anybody's going to give him a hand here. Michael Bogart is the rider in the orange Dutch colours, but there's a little bit of a truce just been called for the minute at least.
Well, Chiandri started off the season very well with a win in a stage race in South Africa at the Vodacom Rapport Tour. But I think more importantly for him, Phil, was the win that he got in the Tour of Lazio just before the Olympic Games. Brochard now on the left-hand side, accelerating, trying to get himself off the front of the pack. A big bike rider, very popular in France, but still got that black cloud over his head because of his involvement with that Festina affair.
So Laurent Brochard, he might well be the team leader of the French now, because there aren't that many of them left. Richard Virenque is in there somewhere, but apart from that, I don't think they've got many people left in the race.
That move was countered by Gianni Farazane, the Italian rider in the middle there, the Mapei rider, as Spain moves forward. A lot of these bike riders now can feel the crunch of this Plouay circuit, a very difficult circuit. And especially when you bear in mind that we're racing in excess of 45 kilometers an hour. Michele Bartoli there in its 6th place, still looking for the move. Nobody yet has managed to break the stranglehold over this field.
Now, big bunch is just strung out, but they're all coming back, you see. Holland on the attack at the minute. And again, that long, thin line, the Italian flag waving quite high now, because they'll get more and more confident with the riders they've got left in this race. They surely have got the players to do a work, and this is going to be the start of it now, because Bartoli's going again. Looks to see who's followed him. I can't see. It might be Schmil. I can't quite see behind him. I think it is.
It is Schmil. Schmil is right there. These two riders marking each other very closely, but Chiandri riding well too there in 3rd position. The Italians still in great numbers in this group, Phil, and that is their advantage. If they see the right combination forming at the front, they can have 2 or 3 riders just sit up and let the gap go.
So the big boy is beginning to test the water now to see who is the strong man. That's a very typical Bartoli attack, that, as fast as he can go, and to see who follows before he continues the pressure. He saw the wrong man on his wheel, Andre Schmil, so he stopped up and back in the field. That field is a very tenacious bunch today. It hasn't really thinned out, as Max Chiandri's got control of the head now.
Chiandri looking very cool. He shouldn't be riding like this. He's a lone rider. He doesn't have any team support at the moment. He has to ride his own race. But maybe thinking about moving on to a top squad. I think this is pretty funny. I'm Max Chiandri riding for Great Britain all on my own. and I'm putting you guys into difficulty. Michele Bartoli goes again, but look at that, Phil. Right on his wheel there is Andre Schmil.
Yes, you won't be laughing now. He had a little joke, I think, with Andre Schmil just before Bartoli went. But Bartoli thinks, well, this isn't worth it. Obviously, Andre's marking him now. So it's a free wheel again.
It's a bit strange, this. These guys are beginning to get worried about the fact they're not able to open up a breakaway situation. This is still a very large group of riders for this stage in a World Championships, and maybe the circuit here in Plouay is not quite difficult enough to split the race to pieces. Schmil now on the attack, being covered here by Spain, but there will be a major reaction behind, and that must certainly come from the Italians. This group very much staying together. As they get closer to the finish, Phil, I'm wondering if we might see a very large group come down to the line here, because nobody so far has been able to get very much more than 10 or 15 meters off the front of this main pack. There are still a couple of the big teams with a large number of representatives present, which means they'll always be able to organize the chase unless exactly the right combination goes off the front. But looking down there, it's a very big pack.
It is very big, but what I'm always full of admiration for the big stars like Andre Schmil and Michele Bartoli, always willing to attack and test the water, even though there are so many riders there, having more or less a free ride towards the finish. The big names of cycling never afraid to have a go and see what happens.
Belgium still got quite a number of representatives in the group here. Axel Merckx moving to the front of the pack right now. But this is a tricky part of the course. Next time they come up to the line, they will face one lap to go to the finish.
The rider on the front here was having a chat with his team car, the way he was gripping his racing jersey. That's what his microphone is. All back together again, time for a drink.
There's Axel Merckx in second place there. The Swiss also pretty much at the front. Merckx sliding down through the group, probably will go and have a quick word with Andre Schmil. Almost 38 years of age, Schmil, and still super competitive in these one-day races. Michele Bartoli, I think next time we come to the finishing straight up through Plouay, will try and launch the attack again. I don't think that the climb is quite hard enough. This is Luca Scinto on the front, the super domestique, a great friend of Maximilian Chiandri's. He will ride his heart out for the team, the Squadra Azzurra, right now.
Yes, I saw Luca Scinto win the Tour of Langkawi a couple of years ago. That really is the only win of note he's ever had, and it was a big surprise, but he rode so well. There's the long thin line through beautiful French countryside in the west of France as we course through Brittany now. These are wonderful roads to train on or just to cycle on. If you ever want a holiday, go to Brittany, but you'll find the roads are never flat and the hills are often short and steep.
Goraz Stangelay in fourth position, the Slovenian rider. We saw him win the Commonwealth Bank Cycle Classic last year. That's Axel Merckx there, riding pretty much to the front. Had a very good Olympic road race, did Axel. But I think today really playing the card of Andre Schmil. Schmil in excellent condition. The Swiss rider close to the front there was Mauro Gianetti, wearing number 18. But it's a long, thin line, and still I think quite a few riders in this group, Phil, have got pretty fresh legs right now.
Bettini setting the pace. Merckx, for us, is a man of the big day, the big event. He always rises to the occasion, and he's right there again. I'm sure Father Eddie will be watching this with great interest now. The Italians are playing all of their cards right now, and they're not going anywhere, as Paolo Bettini sets the pace now.
Just caught a glimpse of Richard Virenque. He's around about 20th place in this group at the moment, still very much a contender for the last lap here, because it may well be we'll find ourselves with a strange break going off the front when we come up to the final ascent up through Plouay. Scinto deciding that as far as he's concerned, he has no hope at all of winning the event, but he does have a hope that Michele Bartoli can take the glory for Italy. Bartoli, before the start of this race, Phil, the super favourite to take out the win. Magnificent win at the Grand Prix of Plouay. Said he loved this circuit. He rode very well in the Olympic road race. He just missed out on that move when Jan Ullrich got away with his teammate Andreas Kloden. And although he chased for an awful long time with his teammate Paolo Bettini, they were never able quite to make the junction. So if he can get the world title here, that would be a super revenge.
Just look at Bettini here. Scinto sitting behind him as he drives on. continually. Doesn't even look over his shoulder for any help. He just pulls this race through, goes wide for the left-hander. Fabulous riding, never afraid to work. He's not thinking of a world title. Mind you, I remember Stephen Roach doing this for Sean Kelly in Vilac in '87. At the end of the day, it was Roach who had to take out the title for Ireland.
Looking as if there are a few riders gone missing from that group right now. Looking down there, they can still see Brochard and Richard Virenque pretty much to the back of this pack.
This is Merckx, isn't it? No, no.
Very much, yes, it is. It's Axel Merckx going off the front. This is a slight attack by Axel moving forward off the front of the pack, but it looked to me as that was Gianni Farazane moving forward.
Well, climbing up the drag towards the finishing line. We should hear the bell this time. And Axel Merckx has turned around the tactics a little bit by launching that attack.
You can feel the pain right now looking down there. Number 1 is still in this group as well.
Chandler Cray, the American, a man for the World Championships. He rode a great Giro d'Italia as well. These are the survivors now. There's an awful lot of them.
There's an awful lot starting to have sore legs too. There's a little bit of a gap appearing at the back of the main field. Look at the face of this man, though. Second in the recent Paris Tours, the winner of the Tour of Flanders. A magnificent move. Everybody thought the race was over when this man leapt off the front and held on by fractions of a second to win.
Yes, that was a great ride. Now, Italy again launching an attack.
Yevgeny Spruk is right in the action there in 4th position in the white jersey with a red stripe down the middle. The Italian rider on the front right now is Sergio Barbaro. He rides for the Lampre squad normally. Another move coming, that looks like El Gatto. That looks very much like Michele Bartoli, very low down over the front end of the machine. And this may well be the move. This is the move by Michele Bartoli, but look at the reaction. Andre Schmil.
Veritable scramble behind. Now Schmil has marked Bartoli throughout this race, clearly nailed him down as the number 1 favourite along with Andre Schmil. And every time he's made a move, he's cruised over that gap. He's just cruised over it, and Bartoli will just say, oh, not you again. As the reaction has come from the field, this will hurt. But Michele Bartoli, in this sprinting style he has, stays low on the bars. He looks